What's the darkest family rumor about your grandparents that turned out to be true? Growing up, everyone in my family whispered that my grandmother killed her first husband back in 1968. The official story we all grew up hearing was that my grandmother's first husband, Tommy, abandoned her and their newborn baby in 1968, just vanished overnight without a word. Tommy's younger brother, Robert, ended up marrying her 6 months later and raised that baby girl like she was his own blood. That baby became my Aunt Linda, and she never knew any other father. But all the old people in town told a completely different story. They'd lean in close at the grocery store and whisper that Tommy never left town at all. They swore my grandmother murdered him in cold blood, and Robert helped her bury the body, then married her to keep her out of the electric chair. The rumor made my skin crawl because Tommy's disappearance was bizarre as hell. The guy supposedly ran off but left everything behind: his truck, his wallet, even his work boots by the door. 6 months later, my grandmother was married to his brother, wearing white at the wedding like nothing had happened. I told myself it was total bullshit. My grandmother was this tiny woman who cried at Hallmark commercials and taught Sunday school for 40 years. She literally trapped spiders under glasses and made my grandfather release them outside. Plus, everyone knew Tommy was a violent drunk who came home raging most nights. My grandfather once let slip that his brother used to come home wasted and destroy furniture. A deadbeat running off made way more sense than my sweet grandmother being a killer. I always believed it was just small town gossip from people with nothing better to talk about. Everything changed when my grandfather got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave him 3 months, but he only lasted 6 weeks. During those final days, something dark started creeping into his conversations that made my blood run cold. One afternoon, while my grandmother was at the pharmacy, he grabbed my wrist hard enough to leave marks and said, "I've been a good father to Linda, haven't I?" When I told him of course he had, tears streamed down his face. Better than Tommy ever would have been. That man was going to kill that baby. My heart started pounding. That comment sent me spiraling about all the strange things that suddenly felt sinister. Like every March 15th, they'd turn ghost white and drive to their old property they never visited otherwise, returning hours later looking haunted. My grandmother would physically shake at Tommy's name. Zero photos existed from before 1969. His family never spoke Tommy's name, like he'd been erased. My Aunt Linda mentioned something that made my stomach drop. My grandfather would hold her face and say her real father wasn't capable of love, but he had enough love for 2 fathers. He always looked terrified when he said it, like he was begging forgiveness for something unforgivable. The pieces were fitting together in ways that made me sick. 3 days before my grandfather died, he asked everyone to leave except me. He could barely talk, but grabbed my hand with desperate strength. "You're the only one who needs to know this," he rasped. "The others wouldn't understand, but you will. Your grandmother did kill Tommy," he whispered, "but you need to understand why." My whole body went cold as he told me what really happened on March 15th, 1968. His brother came home more violent than he'd ever seen him. Baby Linda was crying like babies do, and Tommy completely snapped. He grabbed that tiny baby and started shaking her viciously, screaming he was going to bash her skull in. My grandmother tried to rip Linda away from him, but Tommy was massive compared to her. He threw her into the wall so hard it cracked the plaster, then went straight back for the baby with murder in his eyes. That's when she saw his hunting knife on the counter. She wasn't trying to kill him, just trying to save her baby. But Tommy spun around at the exact wrong second, and the blade went straight through his chest, piercing his heart. My grandfather had been checking on them every night because Tommy's violence was escalating. He walked in to find his brother dead in a pool of blood, and my grandmother clutching a screaming baby, both drenched in red. He told me he didn't hesitate for even a second because he'd watched Tommy terrorize them for months and knew one of them would end up dead. They wrapped the corpse in a tarp, drove to the family property in the dead of night, and buried him deep under an old oak tree. After scrubbing away the blood until dawn, my grandfather spread the story that Tommy had run off. "I married her 6 months later because I loved her," he said, his voice failing. Had loved her since before Tommy ever laid eyes on her, but also because a widow remarrying quick made sense back then. Stopped people from asking questions. "I didn't marry her just to save her. I married her because I wanted to spend my life making up for what my brother put her through. Every single day for 55 years has been a gift." He died holding my hand, finally free of the secret he'd carried for more than half a century.